Hi everyone, I am so thrilled to join you today live and in person. I want to send a special shout out to everyone at BizClick Media and Glenn for the inclusion and for this incredible event. Doesn't it feel good to be face to face with people again? Yeah. Okay, so today we are going to talk all about breaking down the barriers in environmental sustainability, and also how we can actually seize the opportunity in sustainable transformation and operationalize it and make it real. I'd like to start out with framing the priority and the challenge of sustainability. So just by a show of hands for all the beautiful people in the room that folks watching digitally can't see, just curious, do you feel that sustainability is a personal responsibility in your life, just by a show of hands? And this is a judgment-free zone. Almost everyone raised their hand. Okay, stay with me. Do you carry that same responsibility with you in your daily role wherever you work, the organization you work? Show of hands. Almost the same group raised their hands. And this is really interesting because that aligns very closely with research that I'm going to unpack today that has been funded by the Institute of Business Value, that's IBM's research arm, and also Oxford Economics. So you're going to see a sneak peek of IBM's latest CEO study. It's a study that we do every year that talks about this intersection between digital transformation, modernization, sustainability, and also a transition to values-based economy. Now, as you see on screen here, there are two business imperatives that are facing society, humanity, and also the world that we share together: the climate emergency and addressing social inequities. And as you can see, both CEOs and consumers expect businesses to address these opportunities, these challenges. The other thing that's really interesting is that more than half of CEOs actually think that businesses have an obligation to respond and rise, to show up differently and impact the communities where they operate. So as we go through this, I just want you to tuck this in the back of your mind. Over 85% of CEOs that we surveyed said that they feel that same personal sense of responsibility to show up within sustainable transformation. Now, our research also shows that environmental sustainability is absolutely a priority, but there's a gap. There's a gap between ambition, intention, and what actually happens at the day in the life process, the decisions that we make. And as you can see on screen, 86% of the organizations, the CEOs surveyed, said, yes, of course we have a strategy for sustainability. Yet only 35% have actually acted on that, and we're going to unpack that number a little bit today. This is a really interesting chart because if you just read top to bottom, again, the priority and the challenge, what's most interesting here is sustainability and regulatory pressures emerge as the greatest challenge. But if you see year over year, sustainability, that pressure has increased almost 20% from 2021. And you might say to yourself, why is this important? As supply chain and procurement professionals, some of these are front of mind for us: technology infrastructure, supply chain disruption, geopolitical uncertainty, market shifts, public health crises. We all know this. We're living through it. We've lived through it for the past 24 months or so. But there's a real sea change happening right now because sustainability is not someone else's problem. And when we double click on that pressure, the regulatory pressure, the pressure of sustainability, CEOs have reported pressure specifically from board members, 5 times higher to be transparent in business operations, in the communities where they operate, and preserving the social license to operate. Overall, across the board, every stakeholder group wants greater transparency around sustainability. What is transparency and sustainability? We hear a lot about that. Visibility, traceability, transparency, but what does it really mean? And what's interesting is, I know Mark Pereira is here somewhere. I did a panel with him a couple days ago to due diligence professionals. And a lot of folks think that due diligence and compliance will give you transparency. No, that does not equal trust. It doesn't equal the type of feeling that we're after when we go back to that first opening slide. What if you could fundamentally help your customers, help your trading partners, help your employees, your investors, feel like they're making a difference when they choose you, your brand, when they interact with you at every transactional point, every touch point across your global network and supply chain. And this is the maturity continuum. We're going to talk a little bit about this later in the presentation through the lens of digital transformation. But again, just close your eyes and imagine this green thread end to end, and on the left-hand portion of the thread, you have that due diligence and compliance angle. And as you move left to right, you start to see optimization. You start to see transformation. So technology, exponential technology, the adoption and scale of those technologies to really operationalize ESG and sustainability. But what's after that? And that's often where we start. We think, okay, we buy this solution or a suite of solutions, we turn the light on and we're transformed. But that is not the journey we're on, everyone. Constantly changing environment, right? Look at the regulatory pressures that are coming out, the SEC. In Germany, the Supply Chain Due Diligence Act. We have taxes on plastic, virgin materials, carbon border adjustment tax. It's only going to grow. So what's beneath this? That's where I play. Innovation. How are we truly enabling and building and closing our eyes and rethinking all of the things that we've created? Think about the disruption and the challenges that we have as supply chain and procurement professionals. We have designed this system to perfectly get the results that it's getting. How are we innovating? How are we thinking about things and designing for a circular economy? Truly addressing all of the ESG-related risks that make our jobs really tough. What's the experience? End to end. How are you taking folks with you? How are you giving them the right level of, here's that word again, transparency, which may not be giving them every bit and byte of information that they need, but just enough to make the right decision, to help humans make better decisions to design a better world. And then you'll see trust at the end, a very human emotion, and that's what we're after. This is all about helping human beings become better versions of themselves, where their personal values and the personal responsibility that almost everyone but 2 people in this room raised their hand when I asked that in the opening line, shows up in your work. You feel connected to that. You feel connected, and it's not divorced when you walk through the door wherever you work in your organization. So we know that there's optimism, but what's unclear, as you can see on screen, what's the ROI? The economic benefit. There's a lack of steering. We are surrounded by data. We lack insights, okay? Regulatory barriers and technology barriers. And this is what we're going to focus on today. How to break those barriers. This is the last slide here. And what I want to show you is, the question posed was, how do you characterize your investments in sustainability to date? On the left-hand portion of the screen, we have the sideliners. These are folks who have made no sustainability investments to date. Inaction is a decision. And as you move from left to right, what you see is that, think about that maturity continuum. Moving to compliance, right? They want to comply with mandates. All their investments are driven by regulation. And then operational. Their investments are typically tied to efficiency. So cost optimization, lean and green operations, still potentially iterating to lowest cost, which inherently designs a lot of risk in your business. And then at the far right, transformational people. These are people who are truly reshaping major aspects of their ecosystem and their enterprise, leading with purpose, open innovation, ecosystem, engaging the breadth of their supply chain, and making the type of digital technology investments that make this real. And we're going to talk about that. Breaking down the barriers. So to better understand how organizations actually approach sustainability, there are 3 criteria. The commitment, board-level commitment, C-level commitment, and also walking the talk internally, incentivizing the right organizational behavior to make it real and to hold people accountable. Next is sustainability effectiveness. So this is, again, measured on environmental sustainability business process, and you might say, Sheri, ESG, it's three-dimensional prosperity. I agree with you. Unfortunately, the S in ESG is a very wicked conundrum right now, and that it's very hard to get around those numbers. We know what we need to do, but that data, ground truth, first-party signal data, deep in your supply base, deeper in your operations, it's very hard to tease out. So for the purposes of what we're going to unpack in the next 15 minutes or so, we're going to focus on environmental sustainability. I'm also going to show you some benchmarking around how these transformation trailblazers compare against their competitors in peer benchmarking. And then lastly, sustainability integration. This is critical because without digital, sustainability is not visible, it's not actionable, and it's also not operational. And coming up in supply chain, I wake up every morning propelled by purpose, and I jump out of my bed, and I believe in God, but all others must bring data. And also, I'm super pragmatic because that's the world I grew up in. So we're going to take that lens as we unpack this information. And this is what it looks like. Again, if you remember the 13% that was on the far portion of the slide a couple slides ago, transformation trailblazers, these are people who are firing on all cylinders. When you unpack moving left to right, strong board and C-suite commitment to sustainability, high effectiveness at environmentally sustainable business process, and high alignment of sustainability and digital strategy. 10%, so moving over, this is more of an operational lens. So they have the same C-level and board commitment. They actually prioritize environmental stewardship, but they have limited alignment. So again, just focusing on lean and green operations, eco-efficiency, potentially circularity and some material utility, but they haven't reached the breadth of innovation around new business models, new streams of revenue, and rethinking sourcing strategy and how they are hyper-local. Think about all the things going on in the world that we've been discussing over the past day or so. And I'm very disappointed to talk to you all about the execution stragglers and the sideliners. Believe it or not, and I will leave names out to protect the innocent, I spend a lot of time with these folks. And these are good people, just like you and I, who want to make a difference, and they are paralyzed. They do not know where to start. It's very vulnerable, and hopefully I'm going to give you some call to actions. If you feel like maybe your organization sits in one of those categories, the good news is we've never been smarter. We have the technology at our fingertips that we need to make an impact, and all you have to do is get started now. One obvious, glaring point is that the trailblazers and the strivers outperform in carbon reduction initiatives and strategy. When you use carbon as a leading indicator, it becomes apparently clear that these folks are clearly breaking the barriers. And the differentiator is how they're using smart investments in technology and modernization to make it real. There were 6 key themes as shown on screen that emerged. And we're going to cover some of these. Leveraging sustainability as a catalyst for transformation. So this is all about leadership. Leading with purpose, holding the folks in your organization accountable. Also, if you jump down to the bottom, how you engage your employees and your customers. It matters. Second, tapping the potential of emerging technologies and data. How you're embedding sustainability within operations, so we're going to give you a functional view of how this shows up in priority based on the research shared herein. You know the commitment's important, but number 5 is where it really comes to life. How you are collaborating across your supply chain and your ecosystem. This is not a problem that one entity alone can solve. Not one technology vendor, not one corporation, not one vertical. Everyone has to collaborate in order to scale at pace. And just to give you a flavor of what this looks like in terms of that same maturity model, and you might see that we have 6 stages. This aligns with the maturity continuum that I covered earlier. In stage 0 and 1, in terms of the type of feeling and attitude and investment, these are folks where digital maturity is typically very low. Processes, systems are siloed. Data collection is very manual. Lots of Excel. All those CSR reports that may or may not even be produced, that annual could be a CSR report, an integrated ESG report, may take 4 to 6 months to produce. It's non-value add work, it's repeated every year, and it's typically box checking. Moving to the right, the difference here is ESG performance management. And I didn't say sustainability. When you think about sustainability, this is defined by your bold ambition, offered anchored in the SDGs, your materiality, and the outcomes that you're after. ESG performance is a subset of that. It's the performance management, the operationalization, and moving beyond non-financial performance disclosure to really getting in the heart. How are those KPIs embedded in decision orchestration end-to-end throughout your supply chain? And it shows up here in optimization and transformation. What you'll see is typically clean core. You'll see some standardization across integrated business process. You'll see something called intelligent workflows in the use of AI. So this is very point and click technology. The capabilities that they're trying to enable are centered around classic optimization techniques, S&OP, for example, sustainable sourcing and procurement, asset management, and getting really clear on eco-design. So again, that lens of eco-efficiency, green efficiency. But what's on the far right is incredible. And this is where people start to lean into the core values. And this value is not a standalone organization. There are several brands that I could highlight here that are really walking the talk, Unilever being one. Hi, Mark. It's a core value, and it shows up. It's cascaded throughout strategic, operational, and tactical performance. They're focused on differentiation typically, so advanced analytics, data fabric, leveraging sustainability as a competitive advantage. So really looking in terms of market growth, new streams of revenue, product as a service, and also making sure that they are making the right types of investments in responsible IT. So something called responsible IT, you might say, what is that? It's how you actually architect the type of change with decarbonization in mind. Looking at a more holistic lens and stack of your product roadmap, where you want to go in terms of your science-based targets or your net zero transition, and then making sure that you have those new business models and the future of work aligned. And what happens is that attitude changes. This is just as much a mindset shift, believe it or not, a culture change, a talent transformation change, as it is being good for the planet, good for society, and good for business. So the question here is, to what extent do you agree with the following statements? Our sustainability investments will accelerate business growth. And you see the sideliners, they're still assessing, they're still waiting. And as you move left to right, it's very clear for folks who understand the link between digital transformation and sustainability transformation, that this is accelerating business growth. It's adding value exponentially year over year. And even if we just look at the last 2.5 years, through the COVID pandemic, through supply chain and procurement disruption, the transformation trailblazers have outperformed the other three archetypes in revenue, market growth, and EBITDA. The other thing that's interesting is, remember I said being purpose-led. The pursuit of sustainability outcomes actually trump iterating to lowest cost. And that's the world that I grew up in. Unfortunately, beating up suppliers for lowest unit price, all of the things that we were taught that we were supposed to do. That was what success looks like. The world has changed because in that model, we externalized a lot of risk in iterating to lowest cost. And what happens is, that key between involving your employees, your biggest asset, the biggest asset that you have, it shows up in productivity, it shows up in innovation, and it shows up in how they actually become a catalyst for new ideas in showing up to deliver on your environmental and your sustainability initiatives. This is a functional view, and it's really interesting. As I said, innovation is key. So product innovation, starting by design, deploying upstream thinking. A lot of the impacts, so ESG impacts that we have right now in the world that we share, we've designed them into the products and services. Up to 85% of those impacts happen by design. So how can we leverage our biggest champions, our employees, and our stakeholder partners across our supply chain, our key suppliers, to rethink how we've created the complex opportunity that we have right now? Again, ecosystem engagement, number 2. Manufacturing and supply chain, customer engagement and experience. The transformation trailblazers have this figured out, and it all starts with purpose, leading with purpose. Open innovation, again, just a view. Open innovation with business partners drives sustainability initiatives. Overwhelmingly clear when you look at this graph juxtaposed with folks who are still waiting and just wanting to be compliant. Due diligence, compliance, business as usual. It's just not enough anymore. Another view. Innovation. How does it translate to product and service development, an increase in market share, new streams of revenue, and future-proofing your business? This is all about designing for reuse, being more energy efficient in bringing your products and services to market, and also actually being intentional, leaning in, and developing new products and services that support a renewable and green energy transition. So what's the action guide for the CXOs or anyone who's just curious to get started and learn more, whether you're in the room right now or you're watching on demand or later in the day? You have to embrace personal responsibility. Help shape the narrative rather than being reactive. And I think that everyone in this room knows that intuitively. But how do you make it real? How do you use sustainability, again, to rethink and redesign a lot of the complexities that we have right now, designing out unpredictable factors? Next, technology. And I'm not just saying that because I work at IBM. I'm not a technologist by trade, but I definitely see the clear connection in serving customers and wanting them to succeed and seeing them realize their dreams. You have to make sure that you invest in the right technology to enable orchestration, promote open architecture and flexibility for that ecosystem play and everyone coming together and being able to participate with you in your journey. And then also inform better decision making. And this is one of my favorite things. Make sustainability an enterprise-wide concern. Hold people accountable. When CXOs are held accountable for environmental stewardship, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and also the right type of representation and governance across their enterprise, the suppliers they choose, for example, we see a 7x growth in those respective KPIs. So it's important to be ambitious, but it has to show up in how you manage your folks and how you hold yourself accountable. Engage your supply chain and make sure that you always lead with the measures, the standards, and the KPIs that are at your fingertips, whether this is through an ESG performance metric or something that's most material to your organization and your ecosystem partners. I work at IBM Consulting and Sustainability Services, and what I do in a nutshell is I create. I create and I help humans make better decisions to design a better world. If you scan this QR code, I would love to connect with you. If you have any questions, I know we only have 2 minutes left, but I would love to connect with you. If you have questions, please reach out. Also, all of the research that I've described herein, there are 5 assets that underpin some of these numbers. They're available for free with a click. So I'll pause now for any questions, and I think Scott might come out. There he is.
As if by magic. Sheri, everyone. Okay, in case you don't know the format, if anyone has a question, stick your hand up and we can get a microphone to you. I've also got questions that have come through here as well. Okay, let's take a question straight away from the front. Thank you. You just start by saying who you are and where you're from, please.
Femi Ibrahim from UK Energy Solutions. Thank you, Sheri. Lovely presentation. Just quickly, out of curiosity, I think your last slide where you had those 5 points where everybody need to look at and to move towards sustainability. Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
I was just looking at it and I was thinking, I don't think it was about, sustainability we've been talking about for a long time, technology we've been talking about a long time. So I don't think it was about, embracing it or not. But I guess it all came down to cost, technology, investments. Now, I think more than ever, there is a lot of move and a push towards that. Are you thinking the supply base is changed? Is IBM feeling that there's a lot more suppliers out there coming up with solutions that help smaller companies kind of go ahead and implement these?
Absolutely. So I think, the thing that I like about digital is access. It creates the access that, frankly, a lot of folks haven't had. A lot of the work that I do in CPG is all around creating that access in responsible sourcing and also engaging diverse suppliers, not only for innovation, but giving them a fair shake to participate with bigger brands, specifically around Black-owned business. So that's kind of the space where I work at IBM and then in previous roles. I do think that technology is important, and before maybe the emphasis wasn't necessarily on that link between digitalization and then making sustainability real. Again, it oftentimes does come down to data, and it's an open architecture. So when you think about just ESG reporting as a whole, the data capture, the data aggregation, the data cleansing, the data automation, all of these things have to happen just to visualize current state across your network, across various functions. But that's like a business as usual step. If you can't visualize things, how the hell do you know where to go or steer or what to prioritize? So we have materiality and we have that lens, but I think the visualization is just one piece of it. It's also a lot of the relationship stuff. I see Mark Pereira in the back of the room. He's probably going to talk today about supplier relationship management and collaboration. And it's those two worlds colliding in this perfect Venn diagram of people, planet, purpose, and impact. The other thing is there's a real sea change in the responsibility of business to step up. So when you think about value and ROI, that measurement, that yardstick is changing as well. It's not lowest cost, it's also risk competitiveness. You know, we've externalized the risk that we've designed in our supply chain, and I mentioned that. That's waste streams, that's packaging waste, it's plastic, it's the extractive nature of our end-to-end production and manufacturing processes, our sourcing practices. There's value left on the table. I mean, only 9% of the world is circular. Think about what that looks like in 8 more years. You can't do business on a dead planet. You can't do business when you can't walk outside and breathe. So for all of those reasons, that's why I'm so passionate about the promise of digital. Now, the digital divide is real, but how do you create and rethink and give folks that type of access? And that's some of the work that I do. Putting a business on a smartphone, for example. A lot of folks have smartphones. Engaging smallholders all the way upstream, nth tier, 5th tier, 6th tier, paying them on their phone, on their smartphone, giving them the type of insights and visibility specifically in sustainable agriculture where they can see weather and climate data. They have optimal planting patterns. They have the ability to see where they have optimal yields. Supply assurity all the way downstream for your big brand, like a Unilever, for example, where you can share that yield and that quantity, reliable forecasts, flattening supply chains, folding them in half, because you're finally connecting that first kilometer to the last mile or to the 100th mile of the supply chain. So it's all of those things that I think are going to, in the next 5 years, revolutionize the way that we live and work. That was a long answer, I'm sorry.
No, that's a good answer. Could we get a microphone just over there to the far side, please? In the meantime, you sort of just answered the question I had, because you're talking here, and the word you mentioned was perfect as well. How achievable is it? You say, for instance, we could be looking at a timeline of like 5 years. Do you really believe that in 5 years that's where we'll be?
I'm a prisoner of hope. Of course I believe that. Of course. You have to believe. I mean, can you imagine if we didn't? Almost every person in this room raised their hand. We should have spent the 32 minutes brainstorming together as a group from our respective companies and coming together and figuring out where could we start piloting together, where could we start ideating about rethinking some of the things that I unpacked today. Yes, I believe. I believe.
Okay. Okay, can we take the question? Just start by saying your name and where you're from, please.
Hi, Sheri. My name's Jag. I represent Honest Mobile. We're UK's only B Corp mobile phone network. We're finding the B Corp movement is a great way to support consumer sustainable choices. It's a growing movement, and also seeing a lot of larger enterprises are starting to look into B Corp as well. I just wanted to know what your opinion was on the B Corp movement in general and its importance, in particular for larger enterprises and making up part of supply chain choices as well.
Absolutely, and that is one of my personal priorities as the new global leader of sustainability services at IBM. Yeah, we're going to talk. Absolutely. We're putting social impact and community resilience at the center of everything we do. Yep.
Okay, just very briefly, because we've had loads of questions come through virtually. Just want to finish maybe on this one. It's from Andy Carter, and he says, is the short-term focus on profit the barrier to investment in sustainability?
Profit at all costs, yes. Profit at all costs. And the cost is the world that we are leaving our children, and we are very close to a tipping point. The latest IPCC report, right before COP26, it was Code Red for Humanity, and the latest report shows we have a very small window. We have a very small window to really act and make the type of decisions that we need to truly change this. I believe it's possible. I hope that we're smarter than ever. I know that we have the technology at our fingertip. It exists. The money exists even. We just have to mobilize together. And we're doing that. There's been tremendous progress. Is it fast enough? I don't think so.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. Great session to start the day. Sheri Hinish. Thanks, Sheri.